Hello, my name's Ginny Wollaston and I'm chair of ChangeKitchen 2020 UK, which is the UK wing of a global movement, ChangeKitchen 2020, as a peace global movement and walk. We've come to Roeheath Pavilions today to see the Covid-19 project being run by ChangeKitchen. Now, ChangeKitchen is committed to finding a way where healthy food can be available to all people, not just to those who can choose it. And we are writing this case study to see how food and food security can relate to the 4 pillars of ChangeKitchen 2020, which is about eradicating poverty, eliminating social exclusion, ameliorating the climate crisis, and halting conflict and violence through peacemaking.
So yeah, how do we get involved in the whole helping with COVID with the Active Wellbeing Society? Have known Karen for a while, even from before she ran the Active Wellbeing Society, when she was still working for the council, and we've always had a connection because she worked for wellbeing services for Birmingham. I work in an organisation where wellbeing is a big part of it, and we already talked about just in principle that there's connection between our organisations and that it'd be good to talk. It's always good to talk with other organisations in the same field. They're a sort of they're co-op, but that's in some ways also a social enterprise. There's lots of connections. They're a much bigger organisation, but in principle there's connection points. So when this happened, I think we went swimming before it all got really bad, and I just said to her, God, this is, I'm already thinking how can I be part of the solution? There will be loads of people that need feeding. Karen put together this alliance in a way from anyone who does anything in the world of supporting people with food. Just at the beginning of COVID, just before lockdown actually, and because I'd mentioned, she said, "I will come along to that." So I came to the initial meeting, the founding meeting of this Brum Together thing that's been feeding people.
Per week, so it has fluctuated. Initially, per week, we were only doing about 100 hot meals. But as the COVID-19 crisis developed, that grew exponentially. It went up quickly to about 1,000 hot meals per week. And I would say it now sits somewhere around 1,200 meals per week. The parcels is slightly smaller. We're a site that primarily concentrates on hot meals. But the parcel side of things has been about 500 parcels per week, and that's been fairly consistent.
We also then were approached by Birmingham City Council in a slightly different capacity from what the Brum Together thing did with the big parcel delivery thing, that they had some in the end it was like up to 160 people who were specifically vulnerable and under the care of Birmingham City Council, and they needed parcels and hot food twice a week, specific parcels to see them, so that there were people who wouldn't leave the house. We ended up becoming a hot food and parcel making special parcel or special diet type parcel making plant in a way.
Primarily things are vegan. In the case that they are vegetarian, we're making sure we've got a really good vegan option as usual, and that includes gluten-free and people with wheat intolerances otherwise, things like that. We're really trying to cater for everyone in this.
I think it's a really interesting fact that the food that we provide is all vegetarian or sometimes vegan, as it really opens up the possibility of feeding more people. So regardless of anybody's religion or dietary requirements, everybody has access to food, and I think it might also help people to realise that they could eat less meat. My family, we are meat reducers, I suppose we say. My brother's a vegetarian, has been all his life really, but at home we constantly tell the children about needing to eat, the fact that we don't need to eat quite so much meat, and we've been doing that a lot more in the last 5 or so years.
I think it's definitely made me aware of the haves and the have-nots, and just that I take for granted that there'll be money in my bank account and I'll be able to carry on going and doing a regular shop for my family, and that as people are dealing with redundancies, ill health, varying personal situations. To hear that people can't afford to put food on their own tables or feed their families is really quite heartbreaking.
It definitely brought it home more how bad it is. I did know the statistics about Birmingham's poverty issues, how many families there are living in Birmingham who suffer from poverty, and how many children live in poverty. But it brought it home more because we actually met the people. I mean, not necessarily actually met them, but we met them through, requests and, what they needed and stuff like that. And then through the reports back from the drivers, because we, on top of delivering food, we sort of did a health and well-being check on people as well. So we'd leave the food in front on the door, and obviously not meet people because you're not meant to. But our drivers would come back and tell us whether they saw people or at least heard from them on the phone. And if over a period of time we didn't, 1 or 2 days, then we would do a health and well-being check as well, which meant our drivers always had a connection to people, and they fed back some of the stories that came. Some of them were terrible, and I feel like some of the social issues are going to get exacerbated even more now because the situation's getting more complicated with people being made redundant, and resources, the few resources, those communities, they're already not that resource because they're living in poverty.
People are really, really grateful to have a healthy meal and a hot meal as well. For many of these people, it's their only hot meal of the day. So we are trying to make it really filling as well as tasty and healthy. And we've had a lot of good feedback about it. I remember one in particular, it was an email I had forwarded to me, and it was from a volunteer driver who had delivered the meal that day. And apparently the client, the recipient of the food, had just been saying thank you, thank you, thank you over and over. It's really humbling. It's really nice to see the effect it's having.
So the benefits for me doing the volunteering have definitely been that I felt I was doing something worthwhile with my time that helped the community, and again staying in touch with a way of working after losing my job as well, and staying in the rhythm of a daily work routine, and working with new people, making sure that you work well together as a team, and adapting to a different set of managers, tasks, all that sort of thing.
I think ChangeKitchen have done a fantastic job. They're obviously in the business, they know exactly what to do, they know how to go about it. I think the management's been excellent.
And for me personally, I've said when I first started, when people used to ask me when I started ChangeKitchen, they would always say this thing, where do you want to be in 5 years? And people assume that I'll say, I'll have 5 cafes and have this and that. And I would always say, I'm not really interested in that. I would really like to just be part of the solution that, where access to healthy food is a right rather than a privilege, which I feel at the moment definitely isn't the case. It's very much a privilege to have good healthy food on a regular basis, and I still think that's my main purpose in life in lots of ways, to be part of that.